Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and I have spent the week with America's most affordable SUV. At least it is at the recording of this video, so we'll see whether or not that's still true as this gets edited and comes out. But anyway, I'm going to show you the 14 things that you need to know about the new Nissan Kicks. But before we get into the meat and potatoes, let's talk about some of the funky little features going on with the Kicks. It says Kicks everywhere on the car, under your hood, on your A-pillar, your wing mirror, on your D-pillar, if you can see this back here. It's even got the red outline. And it says it on the inside of both sides of the dashboard. And honestly, it probably says it more places than just that too. A couple other funky things is they really don't want you pressure washing your engine bay, apparently. I've never seen this on any car ever before, but they don't want you pressure washing your engine bay. It also says Renault Nissan here on your battery. And you can see here we have Bose speakers in the headrest. Now this is an SR trim exclusive, but it is kind of cool. Now I will say I haven't really felt like a whole lot of speakering is coming out of the headrest, but it's still a pretty cool thing. Something that Nissan's been doing for a bit of a while. A bit of a while. Also, really didn't expect this car to have ambient light rimming the entire dash and into the door cards, but that's pretty cool. And sorry, spoiler for all you straight pipes fans, but this does in fact have a sliding visor. I've never seen this on a car before where they've called this out explicitly, but they wanted you to know in case there was any doubt or in case you've unsubscribed from the straight pipes. But let's zoom back out, start back up at the top and talk about what this is and what it competes against. Now this is Nissan's smallest and most affordable SUV, at least at the time of this recording. It is the most affordable SUV that you can get in America. And as such, it competes against things like the Corolla Cross from Toyota, Honda's HR-V, and then mostly the Chevy Trax and Trailblazer, I guess you could say, the Mazda CX-30, although that's much more money, and the Hyundai Kona and Kia Niro twins. But unlike some of those rivals that I just mentioned, there's only one engine on offer here. It's a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. It makes 141 horsepower and 140 pound-feet of torque. There's no hybrid, there's no plug-in hybrid, and there's no EV version. That is something that you can get from some of the rivals that we mentioned. But here in the Kicks, you're good for 30 mpg in all-wheel drive, or 31 if you go for front-wheel drive. Now, we did do our Lakeshore Loop and came back with 34.9 mpg, although that's a little bit flattering. We've been hovering around 31, 32 since then. But 0 to 60 is still faster than a VW Tiguan in about 8 seconds. So it's not too bad, but it would be nice to have a hybrid, plug-in, or an EV option here in the Kicks. Power then goes from that 4-cylinder through a CVT, which will fake shifts now and then, to either front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. It's Nissan's intelligent all-wheel drive. And when you go for all-wheel drive, you get independent suspension, but you get a twist beam if you go for front-wheel drive. This will also do about 8.4 inches of ground clearance, so it's reasonably SUV-ish. And we'll talk a little bit more about how it drives later on in the video when we get behind the wheel. But then as we talk about styling, I think this is actually a pretty strong point for the Kicks. It looks funky, it looks fresh, and it looks interesting. It looks youthful, which I think is important for this class. I do like the two-tone paint that we have here, the red and the black. It's $680, but when the red catches the sunlight, woo! You do get a horizontal slatted grille up front and LED running lights, and you can see the front bumper and even into the side skirts has a little bit of a dimpled finish for a little extra texture and kind of style. But we have the top SR trim, which means we get the super dope 3-spoke wheels. They're 19 inches and they look kind of cool. They're like a future cyberpunkish Gatsby design, and I'm kind of into it. Now, like I mentioned, we do have the two-tone floating roof with some of the chrome accenting for the upper portion, and your D-pillar has a little bit of a floating effect. You've also got that dimpling in the lower side skirt with some chrome accenting, and we do have a black wing mirror. And the rear design, you can see, has a nice little flared rear hip. It's a pretty clean design, although maybe not quite as cohesive as the front. It's got a pretty exposed single port exhaust out back, but overall, leave it down in the comments what you think of the styling here on the Nissan Kicks. And on a more practical note, we will check out the trunk. It is a manual opening tailgate, no power here. I wouldn't really expect that for this class, but here you have a 30 cubic foot storage area, which is actually pretty impressive for something like this. You do have a privacy cover that kind of dangles down. You can remove it. It accidentally removed itself this week and kind of rattled around, but we got it back fixed into place. But you do have some pockets over here on the side of the trunk. These fit 2 bottles of wine on either side. I found that out when I went to Costco. But if you lift up the carpeting here, for $180, at least on our SR trim, you can get a spare tire. It's a temporary spare, so not gonna last you forever, but it is pretty nice to have that, something that doesn't necessarily come with everything these days. The seats themselves fold 60-40, and then you have a pretty decent space back here, pretty big, and I think even close to segment leading. And we'll move up into the cabin, talk about the door. No shades, don't expect that. No heated seats, don't expect that. What I didn't expect also is this kind of synthetic leather woven to look like carbon fiber. I've never seen this before, so leave it in the comments what you think of that. But we do have contrasted orange and white stitching. The orange and the red kind of clash a little bit, but it's okay, it's got personality. We'll talk about the space in a second, but we do have the kind of two-tone leather and then kind of textile or cloth inner with some of the orange accenting and stitching. The seats themselves, relatively comfortable. I do sit up fairly high, as I'll demonstrate here. Now I'm sitting, that's actually my driving position, and it's a little bit further back than what we have this at. I still have about an inch or two of knee room. With this in my natural driving position behind 6'1", I am just kind of straddling a little bit. It's honestly pretty fine. The thing that really sticks out is the seat feels a little bit more high up. So unless I have my head in this little cavern here, I am gonna rub my head or my hat and my little nub up here that I know you guys love to care about. Down here, we do have dual chargers, USB-C, no vents, but we do have dual pockets as well. And overall, it's not a bad space, just maybe not some place you'd want to sit going cross country if you're over 6 foot. But one of the things I was super impressed with is the fact that you can get a panoramic roof. Now, obviously that has an effect on headroom, but it's really cool to have a panoramic roof option in something in this class. And then we'll move up even further to our front seats, and you can see we do have the Bose, which we'll talk about in a second, or maybe we already have. I forget exactly where I put it in the video, but anyway, the seats themselves are relatively comfortable. I do hear a little creak laterally. We'll talk about that a little bit more behind the wheel, but we do have some of this synthetic leather with the orange and white stitching, and it continues with this gradiented orange cloth inner, and I like this little detail in here. So there's personality baked into here. On our SR trim, we have 2-level heated seats, and we have a heated steering wheel. This is pretty nice to have in our SR trim. The interesting thing though, is with all of the stuff that you get, 360 camera, pano roof, ambient light, really surprising stuff to have in this class, we're not gonna have powered seats. On any trim, no matter how much money you spend, it's gonna be manual seats, so obviously no seat memory. Just an interesting little place that they maybe decided to cost cut. And we will talk about the interior overall. Now it does feel a little bit tight laterally, almost G-Wagon in that way, but ultimately it's pretty comfortable, I would say. The thing that really stands out is some of the accent and detailing, obviously the orange from the seats, and then the orange and white contrast stitching down your center console, the orange shifter, or stitched shift boot, and the orange accenting around the shift boot. And then of course the stitching kind of around the dash and into the door card, but mostly it's this faux carbon fiber. It's not a plastic, it's legitimately like a padded synthetic leather. And it's so interesting, I've never seen it in anything else. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it just is what it is. And I think it adds a little bit of personality in here. Now in classic Nissan fashion, you also have the kind of brushed plastic effect here into your center console. But one of the things that was interesting to me is you don't have a huge glove box. You have a little bit of like a storage area for your wireless charger up here. And then your center kind of cubby here, not super big or deep, but your cup holders are enormous. They're incredibly deep. So I've got my big water bottle here. And since it has a handle, it's not really going to fit this way. So you have to put it in this way. And if you had two, you could maybe fit them this way, but just a really, really deep cup holder. Kind of funny. But outside of that, the dash works pretty well. I mean, you've got some physical buttons for your heated seats and some of your climate controls. The rest of it's kind of in the screen, so they work together like a normal modern car. We see that in everything. But overall, the interior is not too bad. Not a huge amount of squeaks or rattles. A little bit of that stuff, but you would expect that at the price point, so it's definitely not egregious. And then more specifically when it comes to technology. No head-up display, I can definitely forgive it for that, especially at this price point, but you have this huge 12.3-inch center cluster. And of course, you've got a bunch of different customizability things that you would normally see in your center TFT screen, but it's nice and digital now, so you can adjust brightness or whatever. And then your big center screen, again, kind of 12.3 inches. There's this kind of wasted space here in the middle. I don't really know what I would expect them to do with that, but it works pretty well. You've got wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. You've got some great 360 cameras, and if we go to our camera view, we can cycle through and even see, I don't know if this is for off-roading or just to help you park near a curb, but it's kind of nice to be able to see that view right there on your camera. And there's a nice quick button right here, and a full screen frontward facing camera is really, really quite nice. But the technology itself, the native system, It's got this kind of clicky sound, like almost from like Windows 95, which I find kind of like nostalgic and endearing, but it's fine. There's not a huge amount of like frills or quirks in here, but you've got a wireless charger. It works pretty well. No digital rear view mirror. Again, I wouldn't expect that. But another thing I wasn't expecting was to have Pro Pilot Assist. Now, it's not like industry leading, but it's to have on something like this, a pretty good adaptive cruise and a pretty decent lane keep. You are going to want to keep your hand on the wheel basically the whole time. But I was impressed to see this here on the Nissan Kicks at this price point. And we keep mentioning it, so why don't we talk about it? The price. Now this is, at least at the recording of this video, the cheapest SUV in the country. It starts at $23,000 just over, and you can get it with all-wheel drive for still under $25,000. Now it's thawing out here in Wisconsin, but a month ago that would have been crucial. And as tested, we're here in the top SR trim so we can demonstrate everything, and it's cresting almost, well, it's almost $32,500, but still think it's getting you pretty much everything that you could possibly ask for. So there's a lot of car here for the money, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit more behind the wheel. Hey guys, real quick, Matt here. Just wanted to say I hope you've been enjoying the video. If you have, would really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it does go a long way in helping us get access to cars sooner and get access to manufacturer engineers so we can get more information on the cars and get you more information so you can make better decisions. So would really appreciate you hitting that subscribe, like, comment, the whole YouTube thing. But with that, let's get back to the video. What? I'm not talking to you.
You can interrupt the voice call.
Can I?
You can
Jeez.
interrupt the
Oh my God. Nissan Kicks. It's shifting for some reason. Uh-huh. Brakes. Brakes are fine. Turn in. Oh yes. This is the Nismo Kicks. Okay, let's just chill that out because that's not a super satisfying sound to hear. This 2-liter. It's a Kicks, and it's the cheapest SUV that you can buy. And I think that probably says a lot. No, to be honest, to be fair to the Kicks, I'm really impressed with the amount of stuff that they've brought. Like, this is generally Hyundai's bag. What they do is like, we're gonna give you everything you could possibly want. We're just gonna blow you away by checking boxes and ticking boxes of things that you could possibly want. Even things in luxury cars, we're gonna put in a Kona. Why not? This does that fairly well. You get heated seats, you get a heated steering wheel, you get a panel roof, you get ambient light, you get 360 cameras, you get like an active lane keep assist on something that's not even $35,000, like barely over $32,000 as tested with destination here for your top trim. You can get this car with all-wheel drive for under $25K. I mean, this is a lot of, you're getting a lot of car for the money. The downside of that, the other side of that coin is, I would be a little bit more concerned about longevity, durability, reliability. And it's not because I know, I haven't been on forums like checking if this car is like unreliable or anything, but just some of the sounds that it's made this week aren't like the most pleasant, like the powertrain sound. It doesn't sound like super refined. And then, yeah, some of the like noises that come into the cabin, there's a lot of road noise, so it's a good thing you got these Bose speakers in the headrest because you probably want them on, or the fan is super high. It handles fairly well, but when you do handle relatively well, the seat has developed a creak. If I move laterally, I'm sure you can't hear it with the microphone because there's a bunch of wind noise coming off the A-pillar, but like, there's just stuff. There's sounds going on here. So I use this analogy probably too much on this channel, but it's a little bit like a rushed, flipped house. It looks great from a distance. It's got all the stuff. It's got the white kitchen, and it's got the ambient lighting underneath the countertop that I don't know if people want that, but like, it looks great from a distance. It checks all the boxes, but when you get close and you're like, oh, why would they have done it this way? Oh, I get it, because it saved 13 cents to do it this way. It just feels like there's a little bit of that going on. I don't mean to be malicious to Nissan either. I think what they've brought is a huge amount of car for the money. But if you're expecting this to go 300,000 miles, just maybe keep that in mind. I don't know that this is going to be that type of car. I could be totally wrong, to be fair, but just some of the noises that have come into this car this week don't lead me to believe that this is going to be a 500,000 million mile car by the end of its life. That said, it's perfectly pleasant. And again, it's the cheapest thing that you can get. I say cheap, it makes it sound bad, but like, it's the most affordable thing that you can get, so you can make a lot of excuses for it. And I don't mean to say that it needs a lot of excuses made. Again, we've talked about some of the downsides and some of the noises that it's made, but the truth is, I haven't gotten an error light. I've got all these features. There's pros and cons, guys, and that's why we do the videos the way that we do. So if you haven't watched our pro and con video on this, go and watch that, and we'll go into some of that a little bit more in detail. But thank you. Falling apart at the end of the video here. Thank you so much to Nissan for letting me have a go in your kicks. Thank you to you for watching, and thank you to me for not stuttering again. We'll see you in the next one.